So in today's video, I'm going to be going over every single mechanic in the Mephisto fight and in all three phases. I'm also going to break down every single mechanic and explain how they work. I'm going to be showing strategies for either melee or range. The way I like to counter most of these mechanics is with maximum DPS in mind, because the longer this fight goes on, the more difficult it becomes. Here's footage from my Twisting Blades clear from a while back. I'm going to let the mechanics kind of play out here to show you what they look like in rapid succession, and then I'm going to break each individual mechanic down for you. Start of the fight, regardless of the opening, I prefer to get behind the boss because it's always a safe spot. His melee attack can be countered by evading through the boss and then using a mobility skill to get back. When he has his shades out, they're going to mimic every ability he does, and he'll always spawn in 2 new shades to do that. Alright, so let's jump into it. So you're either going to get these floor beams first, or swords that fly at you. The beams on the floor, the middle one will always be stationary, centered around where you're standing, and the others will spread out from there. So you either sidestep it or just go behind the boss and you'll be safe. Another move he can do right off the start, he can launch these swords at you that will gravitate towards you. Same thing as before, stand behind the boss if you want a safe spot, or you can do a U pattern to avoid them. You can also use a mobility skill when the swords are getting close to you and then just dash away. You will also randomly jump into the air and put a circle around your feet. This circle will move with you if you use a mobility skill too soon, or with around 70% movement speed, you can just walk out of it. So for the melee skill, you evade through the boss, and then you use a mobility skill to get back. It's a bit of a timing attack, but you'll get used to it once you practice it. This will negate a ton of damage from the melee hits. Alright, so at 75%, the shades will come out at any point. Once those are in the arena now, every single mechanic he does, the shades are going to mimic. He's going to spawn in 2 shades, oftentimes one to the left and one to the right of him. The distance seems to be random, but sometimes where your character is standing, but other times it just feels completely random. All I know is 2 shades will spawn in that are currently not on the arena. The shades on the arena are just there to look good. So now for the sword beam, you're going to have the boss and 2 shades doing the same exact mechanic. All 3 are going to target you with the center beam where you're currently standing, and then there's 2 outer beams that will spread. The safest way I play this mechanic is just try to find the spot near me. There's almost always a pocket to stand in. Alright, now for the sword skill. So this one, I typically like to just go to the outside of the arena and then do a big circle, and that will usually avoid most of the swords. I would also suggest throwing in a few mobility skills to help you avoid them. And here's the same circle mechanic from before, but now 2 shades join in and smash down. You simply just run away. Funny thing is, it can target your mercenary and then they chase you around. It's pretty funny. I get a good laugh every time. And then finally, he now can dash at you and then do his melee skill. And the further this fight goes on, the more distance he gains on that skill. So around 50%, he's going to absorb all of his shades. And then he's going to jump up into the air, slam down into the center. There will be 3 small circles that will rotate around the boss. You want to position yourself somewhere in between these, and if you notice on the arena, there's a pattern with a bunch of indents. I typically like to stay on that part of the ring in the arena and then use that as my visual indicator of where I'm safe. And then I just try to position myself in between the little circles. Then as soon as those go off, I move back into the center and I can get right back into the fight. And from here on out, when he repeats the same mechanic, you can get another pattern. This pattern is 3 circles in 3 different groups that rotate around, and you play this mechanic the exact same way as the previous one. So now he can start launching all of his shades directly at you. You can usually take 1 hit from these, but if you take more than that, it's usually a death. And now he's going to start spawning in his shades to do one of 2 patterns. The first one I'm showing you, the safest spot is in the center, or if you get caught on the outside, you can just stand in between the beams on the floor. And then he can also do this pattern. You can either avoid it by going to the outside, stay near the center where there's a bunch of triangle spots, or if you go to the actual center, you'll just get 1 shot, like a sacrifice, which I think is a really cool mechanic. He's eventually going to float into the center of the room. At this point, you're basically in a soft enrage timer. Just like the previous swords, you run around the outer edge of the room to dodge these. They're going to throw all the mechanics at you, and now there's going to be swords floating around the room while you're dodging every mechanic in the fight. And now it's just going to repeat every single mechanic with swords flying at you. Phase 1 feels like almost 3 phases of its own. It's a very long fight if you do all mechanics, but they're really cool, so I think it's worth it. That's it for phase 1. On to phase 2. Alright, so this first mechanic, you can do a little circle like this, or you can go around the entire arena. It's entirely up to you. If you're co-op, I suggest picking a corner and going in small circles like this, it'll make it a lot more smooth. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing as before. I'm going to let this clip play out, show the mechanics in succession, and then break down each one right after. I like going to the center of the room because the poison mechanic, I feel like you can get more DPS in while it's happening, especially if you're ranged. They'll do kind of like a popping animation, and then these red orbs start to gravitate towards you, just like the sword skill from the previous phase. And then he'll finally do his beam skill, and this is the end of this first rotation. So I'll first break down the poison skill. At the boss, there's 5 circles that are going to spawn at his feet. Where these overlap will determine where your free lane is to stand. Once he sends out waves, he's going to spawn 5 more at his feet, but this time at a different rotation. Basically, as soon as the first waves go out, I like to move over because we know another wave is going to be coming down the lane that was safe, but no longer is. And then the small poison circles around the boss will send out a wave towards the boss. This mechanic, he raises his hand, and then he does an animation, and then it turns all of these spikes into souls that gravitate towards you. He dodges these the same way as the sword skills in phase 1. Either create a U pattern. I generally like to go to the outside of the arena and then go around the outer edge, and then once it's all clear, I go back in. He's also going to put his hands together and then launch out a beam. He can go either left or right with this, and he eventually does a 180 with it while moving around the arena. You can melee while he's doing this. You just have to be really careful to stay fully behind the boss. If you're slightly in front or even close to the side, it'll one-shot you. Anytime below 75%, he can start calling down beams of lightning. There's 6 beams total. The 2 in the middle and the 2 on the outside will always move in the same direction, and the 2 left out will move the opposite direction. When he goes into the ground and creates that red wave in the direction he's going, that red wave, it can do a lot of damage. During these lightning beams, he can do the mechanics that we just went through. So you have to dodge the lightning beams, the poison, and the souls all at one time. In phase 2 and 3, stagger comes at a cost. When you stagger the boss, it's going to spawn impelled souls all around the room. You have to find large gaps where there were no souls. I like to start in the middle of the room and then work outwards and then towards the gaps where there were no souls. So at 25% HP, he's going to go into the ground, go to the north side of the map. You can get his HP down to around 20%, but then it's locked. He's going to send these red waves all in your direction that are going to start north and then move south, but they'll curve around. You have to find whatever the biggest opening is and take it. They also leave these little trails, and those will damage you if you don't give them enough time to despawn. And then during this phase, you're going to be dodging those and the boss and all the mechanics we just went through. Okay, well now he just repeats all of those mechanics until either it's you or him. That's it for phase 2. On to phase 3. Right off the start, he's going to have this big wave that's going to come towards you. If you do not avoid this wave and you get hit by it, you'll lose all of your skills and you have to go pick them up quickly. While you're doing this, you're going to have to dodge the hands. So if you lost your movement ability, this can end your run. So just be sure at the start to immediately get to the outside of the arena so you can avoid getting hit by the wave. So the way the hand mechanic works, a bunch of hands are going to spawn out from the ground. The first one to spawn out is going to be the first one that closes. I never get to see which one spawns first because they blend into the arena so well. I usually just try to get out the closest path I have, either walkout or mobility skill. The most common pattern you'll come across are hands that form a line on each side of you. You'll rarely see this pattern. It's a circle pattern. You basically just have to find the opening and get out of it ASAP before it closes on you. Also, just as rare, there's a square pattern. You just basically have to get out at the corner. When he raises one of his hands in the air, he's going to smash that hand onto the ground. When this happens, I like to go to the opposite hand and then just walk over to the one that already smashed down before the next one smashes down. This mechanic is easy to counter when you're in melee range. It gets more difficult at range because the tentacles that come out from the boss are really fast and gravitate towards you, and they leave lines on the ground that will do a lot of damage if you walk over them. He'll also do these swipe skills. If you're behind him, he'll turn around and swipe at you. He'll also do a frontal swipe. You can outrange these or just go around the boss. Eventually, he'll go under the arena. You'll get stun lock. He takes all of your skills and then starts spawning these waves around you. There's an opening in the waves that you can get through to go and collect your skills back. If you mess this mechanic up and get hit by too many waves and get to the center when his face comes up and bites, you will die. You can also time it to where if you use a mobility skill at the right time, you can get out of the waves entirely and just avoid the mechanic. And then sometime around 75% health, he's going to spawn all of these heads around the room. You'll recognize him, he's going to absorb souls from them. While he's doing this, if you're ranged, you can just stand between the heads. If you're melee, you just have to get in as much damage as you can, and then right before the souls start getting absorbed, dash back in between the heads. After he absorbs them all, he's going to channel them and then launch them in your direction. The best way to counter this is to get close to the boss and just move around with him. I've only seen this happen one time. Not sure if it was bugged or not, but I thought it was interesting. They spawn almost directly next to each other. More lightning beams. So on this one, you have to get out of these ASAP. If you wait too long, these collapse on you and you have no way out. Unlike in phase 2, these will despawn fairly quickly, so you don't have to deal with them nearly as long. However, they can be more dangerous if you don't get out of them ASAP. So at 25%, he's going to charge up. At this point on, he's going to start spawning lightning beams on the outer edge of the arena, and these are going to be cutting through the arena. These will be basically spawning non-stop. There's also going to be more souls floating around the room, and at this point, it's going to become way more difficult. The mechanics are basically going to be constantly going now. Here's a mechanic I've only seen one time. The hands will start around the boss, and then outside, there's a lane that you can stand in between each harm. Once these collapse, you take one step over because the previous safe spot is going to collapse another set of hands right after. And just be aware, these lightning beams that spawn on the outer part have no warning and they can insta-kill you. Okay, that is the Mephisto fight. That is every single mechanic that I've currently found. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. This video took me a very long time to make. I've been working on it for a couple weeks now, off and on. Well, that's it. I am Mephisto'd out, and good luck on the fight.